Yep.
Okay,
Let's move in.
okay, but we have to go into executive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we,
Should I move
Have,
to open?
yeah, we're probably session now, we're gonna ask for a motion to go into executive to hear in regards to personnel.
So moved?
Second,
Moved in second, all in favor,
Aye.
aye.
opposed? Question, okay, motion carries 4-0. Oh, wait a minute, is Mary Ann on the phone?
Mary Ann is here participating on the phone.
Okay, Mary Ann, how did you vote?
Yes, she voted yes.
5-0. Motion carry 5-0. Okay, we're going into exec.
Okay, so just a reminder to the board that Mr. Flannery is going to move us into the breakout room.
The whole-
He'll handle the electronic transfer. There's nothing to be done. And you'll next see me up in my office, okay, in about 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all we have to do is unmute ourselves when we're there, right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
well, we're not muted. The only one muted is,
Okay, Mary, you stay on with me. I'm gonna walk up with you.
Come on, baby. Did she? Oh. Why wasn't she in there? Did she hit something?
Are we muted?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hold on, I hope so. Hold on, I'm just waiting for help. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on one
Hold
second.
on a second.
Go to the top. And we're live now. Is Mrs. Santos here?
They still have a countdown,
Yeah, like 10 seconds.
so you're gonna have like.
You said that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
I
close
see
this.
Mr. Caden.
I'm gonna close this one.
No, leave it open.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We good?
Second.
And
Okay. And where's everybody? Who
hi,
is
Mr.
it?
Santos. How are you? Jeanette,
Hello. Oh, yes.
we're in public session now.
Okay, we're in public session now, then 7 p.m. Please a roll call from our district clerk
Okay, Mrs. Santos,
here.
Mrs. Hers,
Here?
Mr. Caden,
Here.
Jim is
Mr.
not here.
Sales?
There he is.
Here.
and Mrs. Zampano.
She's on the phone. supposed to be on the phone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, please, the roll call, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Everybody standing? Okay, I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Of the
United States.
of America, to the republic for which it
and to
stands,
the republic which stands
One nation.
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay. What other things? Are there any visitors? Okay, if there's visitors on the Zoom call, please thank you for attending our meeting. And I would like to motion to approve the minutes of
You can.
our
Yeah.
regular meeting, February 9th, 2021.
So moved.
May I have a so move? Moved in second. Any questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And Marianne?
Mary Ann's here.
Marianne? All right, she approved the minutes?
Yes.
Did she say aye? Yeah, okay. All right, motion carried 5-0. A program presentation. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mrs. Santos. It's my pleasure to introduce our Executive Director of Special Education, Nancy Wilson, who's going to make a presentation on behalf of the Special Education Division. Ms. Wilson?
Thank you. Nancy's muted. She's muted.
Hi, just got it on. Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you? Good to see
Hello.
you. So thank you for having me. I know late at night, but I am grateful and thankful, and I feel very fortunate to be able to just share with you a little bit about the Division of Special Education, concentrating on what it's looked like educating our students with disabilities during this unique time with the COVID pandemic. I do have a PowerPoint prepared, so it'll just give some of the focal points. And at the end, I certainly welcome any questions or any clarification pieces that you would like to see. I do want to thank the Board of Education from the bottom of my heart on behalf of myself, my administrative team, staff, and our families. You all have supported a lot of initiatives, a lot of layers and foundations to responding to virtual remote instruction, as well as blended programming and even the supports and services that we have in place while we are in person 5 days a week. We could not have done what we needed to without your support and your championing for our cause. About a year ago this week, we had transitioned to fully remote school closures. That was very challenging for our students with disabilities and their families, as well as for our staff. It was something that we did not expect, but yet we complied in a way that was quick, but also with levels of creativity. At the initial onset, we created packets of materials and work for our students. Those packets weren't just about busy work or documents like worksheets. It included manipulatives. It consisted of related service material, all of those items necessary for our students with unique needs to access learning. We did do home visits where we dropped off assistive technology devices, equipment like standers or specialized chairs. We collaborated with the districts on that behalf. There were many families that didn't have some basic resources, whether it was, the writing utensils or paper, certain supplies, we made sure they had those. We did lead the dance with our neighboring districts and component districts when it came to the related services. That was the virtual teletherapy, telehealth. We started with regard to direct coaching provided to parents working with their students, and then we moved directly to students about the 3rd week into the school closures. So that was everything from speech and language therapy services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and all of that was provided to the families as per the mandates on the IEP. So we complied with OSEP, the Office of Special Education and Policy at the federal level, but also at the state level with the Part 200s and the IEPs. And districts really appreciated hearing our feedback and looking at some of the strategies we were implementing so that they could meet with compliance as it related to delivery of what we call FAPE, the Free Appropriate Public Education, and the implementation of the IEPs. We worked closely with the districts to distribute Chromebooks, helping families to access the Wi-Fi. Altice at that time was providing it for free. But there were some barriers, and our tech team really stepped to the plate as well. I mean, Tim, Flannery, who is a part of that technology team, supported us in helping to transfer items, coming up with strategies and protocols to support families, and then even having a helpline. So all of that made access to education possible. Then we learned more with Angelique and her team about Zoom and how to bring classes together for what we call synchronous learning, live learning, as well as the asynchronous, which were the posting. So there was a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of problem solving, but tremendously well received by the parents. And we felt good about the work that we were doing based on their feedback to the best of our ability, obviously. A lot of training and professional development took place with the teaching staff. I must say that we are fortunate to have staff that genuinely care about the students, like morally and ethically, want to see the students succeed. So they gave the extra time. So when DIS, through Angelique and her team, offered us free trainings or to participate in opportunities to learn about different web-based platforms, our staff welcomed that. So we were putting into place things like the Zoom, the Google Classroom, Boom Learning, all sorts of activities, Seesaw, in order to get creative in how to meet children's needs. In terms of, the efforts by administration and staff, when the governor closed the schools for the remainder of the year, everyone, did the very best that they could. Education never stopped, right? I mean, even though schools closed, things became more intense and challenging for educators, for families, and for our students with disabilities. It was a constant, good faith, hardworking effort put forth by everyone, at that time. And I will say that we have members of our team that did whatever it took to make things work. When we learned from the governor that, summer school may have opened June 8th when he reversed his earlier decision, we put together stakeholder groups that included staff at every level, teachers, related service providers, administrators, every level of our team, to take a look at what are the requirements from the state, from the Department of Health, from state ed, from the governor's office, that would mean we have the capacity to open the doors. As you know, we elected to not have in-person in the summer due to the fact that we wanted to make sure that when it came time to transitioning students back for the school year, we did so properly. We did it in a way that staff had what they needed, felt supported, that we could walk them through their mental health needs, right? The anxiety, the worries, but also educating parents and students about what education would look like. So the virtual tours, the meetings and conferences that took place. So when we entered into summer program, we did increase the amount of support that we provided, but it was all virtual. We increased the supports through what we call the live synchronous learning. So when we're working with students that have significant disabilities, they were afforded both whole class opportunities for learning with their families, as well as individual learning experiences. Related service providers partnered with the teachers and the families in terms of whole class instruction, pushing in, as well as pulling out. So it was really dynamic. I will say that even though parents wanted very much, a majority of our parents wanted students to return to in-person, they were appreciative to the fact that we were taking the time and care and to diligently make sure that they felt their students were safe when the doors opened. So that was a lot of collaboration and communication amongst the team. And summer participation was outstanding. We had, majority of our students in play, but we also absorbed students from districts who came to us for summer only services. So we were able to increase them, or we were able to support them within our remote virtual learning environment as well. So that was a nice expansion, and it was a nice relationship offering for our districts. The ways in which we maintain connections and the ways that we were able to support remote virtual instruction revolved around really heavy lifting and work supporting parents. Here we're asking parents now to be teachers or related service providers side by side while having a provider working virtually with them. So parent counseling and training was offered to the families on a weekly basis. Even if they didn't typically get this service, it was provided. So what did that look like? That was where we had, let's say, a speech and language therapist that would conference with the parent through Zoom, live learning, and they would model and practice activities, teach them about how they would stretch a student, oral motor, move a child's, teeth, tongue in relationship to each other, giving them the skills to also practice with their child. And then we would engage directly with the student and parent. The parents in the area of counseling particularly appreciated this level of support because for them, they were now able to engage in conversations with their child that was coached by a professional. Whereas when kiddos are in school getting speech and language therapy or counseling, even OT and PT, we can share strategies, but this was real-time engagement in a partnership, which actually ended up being a benefit. In no way, shape, or form do I think virtual remote learning for our students is the ideal or where we want it to be, but I think we were creative in terms of how to bring parents as partners in that process and maximize capacity building for them to support their children. We also shifted instructional practice where when it was math or ELA, how to look at the home environment, whether it was setting a table, counting out, forks and spoons and plates and sorting, laundry folding, functional activities that aligned with the curriculum that also enabled the family to come together. So, modeling those strategies, offering real world practical check-ins, sustaining honest, authentic communication with regard to where we were with regulations and procedures. Parents were very, very receptive to that. All of our CSE meetings were done virtually with the districts, so we sustain those partnerships on a regular basis. You saw many of the end of the year ceremonies and the graduations. They were such fun. I think, our staff definitely stepped out of their comfort zone and were able to come up with amazing ways to make students feel extremely special, valued, and appreciated for all the time and effort they put into their schooling when they were going through an important milestone. So we did the parades, we did the handing off of the goodie bags, we had the special videos and speeches, and even followed through with the awards. So the feedback there, even from families and kiddos, was great. We did a lot of home visits, keeping a distance, but bringing the caps and gowns, making sure they got the resources they needed to participate. So I am proud of the team and the efforts they put forward, and it was really a special time for all of us. When it comes to the next phase of reopening, as you all know, Western Suffolk BOCES was able to offer students kindergarten through 21. In fact, we did get a few districts that took advantage of the waiver to have students that had aged out. So typically when an individual is in their 21st year at a certain stage, they're no longer eligible for school age service. But we had a number of districts reach out and ask if we would continue to service their child into their 22nd birthday. In order to have that kindergarten through, 21, and for some kiddos 22, there was a lot of work that took place in the summer in order to prepare the buildings physically, in order to educate staff and set up systems and protocols, in order to invite families in one-to-one to take those tours and to see what the experience was like. So we had a really strong plan of systems that were able to be shared with families and shown to families, whether virtually and in some cases through an individualized walkthrough of the buildings that enabled them to return to school. Overall, when we started at the start of the school year, we were about 67% of our students coming into in-person live learning. We allowed individuals to engage through truncated day, meaning shortened day, to build their sense of trust and their sense of awareness and comfort level. And now we are at a point where at 78% in person, which is a really nice reflection of the faith and trust that those families have in us, that they come each and every day. The other individuals that are doing remote and virtual learning, a majority of those students really are coming out of our junior, senior high school, which is understandable when you consider that the students there are individuals with developmental delays and a lot of comorbid medical conditions that make them susceptible to, COVID or having some of the underlying conditions that make them vulnerable. But through that preparation, staff became very eager about getting back in the classroom, about having students return. We also, you might remember, we were in Newsday and we had the video where, it really showed how staff crossed that barrier to make sure they were providing the hand over hand, coaching and guidance, and support and nurturing way in order to meet the students' needs while in person. And that's something pretty special because there's not a lot of people at the onset of the return to school this fall that were comfortable with that level of engagement. And our parents were thrilled. And our students, not surprisingly, are more resilient than we ever could have hoped for. So, you know, the structure of what a school day looks like certainly is different, but we knew that we needed to maintain connections. We knew we needed to keep in mind those social emotional learning characteristics and underlying core abilities to enable individuals to feel safe, to feel comfortable learning, and to be able to access their education. And so the items outlined here really go into what helped that to be successful. But those stakeholder planning on the next slide, we go into, there was stakeholder planning meetings, the shifts in extended school year summer program, where it became more intimate, more direct to the student with increased time, real live time of learning. We engaged in surveying parents, a lot of phone calls and getting parent input. What do they feel they would need for their child to feel safe? Those students that are a part of our high school programs, we did reach out to students and student stakeholder groups to get their input. We looked at the civics groups, the student government groups, in order to get the feedback. And based on that feedback and the active listening, we were able to put certain I'll say processes or procedures in place so that they felt safe, that they felt comfortable, that they felt that they could return to school in a way where they weren't going to get sick, or that, you know, we were going to keep them as safe as possible. Everything that we did was transparent by nature. We allowed for flexibility. Even though we were looking at quarterly returns to school, we would look at each case individually. And when a student wasn't deriving benefit through the virtual remote learning, we worked with families to help the student to return to school. And we've had a nice success rate there as well. We also made sure that we, when students are going out due to having been exposed, whether in school or outside of school, where they need to be quarantined or in isolation, all individuals had access to technology. So the equity piece was resolved. We also had the opportunity to ensure they had access to the Wi-Fi. It included working with the districts. So in some cases, some of the districts were able to provide resources. In those districts that did not have the ability to do so, we stepped in and did what needed to be done. The teachers had already set up and worked with their students to have the Google Classrooms set up and arranged for, and we had educated the parents as to how to, you know, access the learning experience. So even when students needed to quarantine or isolate, the process was seamless. Everyone was, you know, comfortable transitioning and making sure there was constant regular instruction and connection with the class going on. You know, the next couple of slides are just really reinforcing how through the social emotional domain, we wanted to say, how do we help our kiddos stay connected to one another, whether they're in person or they're remote virtual, and in social distancing and desks having to face in the same direction, how do we make sure they still understand they have a voice or that they can make that connection? So at the elementary school, we continued with activities through physical education, music, even art, in which we still brought groups together in terms of the large spaces within the school where they could do sing-alongs. They were able to group with other classes, so bringing in students from virtual remote learning into the school setting on the smart boards in order to, you know, see each other, hear each other, share maybe their art projects, ask questions, things of that sort. So a lot of the clubs and activities continued. They certainly looked different, but they sustained themselves. So a few bullets are outlined there with regard to, you know, noting that there were the holiday concert, you know, that brought them together through Zoom, classes sharing, breakout sections in there. And the same has really been done with art and phys ed as well. You know, in our classrooms, they do celebrate, you know, birthdays, but it doesn't look the same, but it might be by dressing up, creating signs, creating art pieces, letters, etc. At junior, senior high school, this was an example of a funny event. It's a few slides before. So they were learning to use Zoom telephone, and it actually was cute because there was this fella here that actually had a crush on one of his classmates, a female student, and she was on remote virtual instruction. So they really look at using the virtual telephone as a means of communicating and bringing the classes together, the pen pals. So like with writing, even through typing, they were able to communicate and message each other. And really the alignment with these skills was also to teach them some of the basic foundation when it comes to using a phone or using a computer. What is appropriate communication? What is an appropriate way to reach out that is, safe and all? So, it's just a nice piece of little stories that go on and people finding creative ways to connect the students. At our secondary programs like Brennan, Manor Plains, and James E. Allen Alternative, the staff there go period by period, and some of the classes are live in-person learning, and then others are remote. However, they all come together in the morning where they do their Pledge of Allegiance, they do their morning announcements, they do a community activity. They also continue to set up the bulletin boards with the themes of critical character education tenets, and those are posted both asynchronously as well as in the school environment. So those just share a little bit. We still have student government. We still have some of the, other groups that come into play at James E. Allen Alternative. What's unique there is with the music, they actually do some programming. So the use of the computer was a natural means of communication, gathering feedback and input, sharing their music. So we crossed that barrier in that manner. And then in Manor Plains, they gave a little example about, how in their homeroom, there is the check-in, check-out, where they get to talk a little bit about the day ahead, asking questions from peers, so opening up that communication. So we are really looking at and continuing to be creative with how do we bridge our community between those that are in person, those that are on remote virtual, as well as those that navigate isolation or quarantines. And how do we keep the quality of the education sound with regard to active participation from academics to social emotional needs, character education, etc. So, Nancy Fischetti was great. She found a quote that definitely sums up my thoughts and my opinions, is that we all had to come together, was us, along with yourselves as the Board of Education, administratively working with our teams, and then coming with administrators. So it's coming together in the beginning, staying in process, and then, by working together, we succeed. So I just am so grateful and thankful to you all, but also to our team. And I am proud of the work that we do on behalf of the unique students we serve. And it's an honor. Thank you for your time and listening.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. I feel us as the board, and especially our students, are very lucky to have staff members like you and everyone. I want to thank our staff on behalf of the board. Everyone from custodian to administrators, everyone in our district has been really came together and came through all this troubling times, and you just showed us more of what you were able to do. But I know you could do it even before that COVID-19. I knew you guys are really fantastic, and I want to thank you on behalf of the board. And please relate our thanks to every one of our staff members, from custodian down to administration, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, next.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Anyone?
Uh,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Hugh Giganti is going to make a brief presentation on policy. Dr. Giganti?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Oh, policy, okay.
Um,
Yes,
Okay.
policy.
So in your board packet tonight, you'll see that there are 4 policies. As we discussed last month, as policies come up that are timely, we always review them and make sure we want to make changes now, or we can wait and change them as a whole unit down the road. The first one you'll see is 2320. We're requesting tonight that you take a look at this in regards to records management. And there's just a minor change in some wording based on some state law changes. So we're asking tonight that this is a first and second read, as you have the right to do with policy 1410.
Okay.
The second, third, and fourth policy, in the midst of COVID, I'm sure many of you have heard and followed along with Ed Law 2D and the Commissioner's Regulations 121, which dealt specifically with personal identifiable data, how we protect that data, not only for our students, but our teachers, administrators, and agency. And we do have current policies in place. However, with the update of the law, which was put into effect as of October 1st, 2019, there were some changes that we needed to revise. At the recommendation of our general counsel, David Desmond, he initially stated that our policy 6420 and 6422 were satisfactory. And this has to do with student records regulation and parents' bills of right. As we went through these policies, the New York State School Boards Association did put out, with the support of the state education department, revisions to those policies. We felt at this time, being that we're working with NYSBA closely to revise our policies, that we would use and utilize upon reviewing the wording of what NYSBA has put out, catering it to Western Suffolk BOCES. So we've gone through this with 6420 and 6422. And in a nutshell, these policies pretty much, they put in place things as a parent to have a bill of rights to be able to get data about their children, how to request that data. There's pieces in the policy that require third-party vendors to submit certain assurances, sign off on the parent's bill of rights. And then there's processes that get put in place so that we can continue to make sure that we're protecting our data. One of the key pieces to this is was the appointing of a data protection officer. That is Mr. Russell Dixon. He is the director of technology, and he is in this policy as the data protection officer. If any complaints came in, he would be the person responding to it. So 6420 and 6422 are the revisions of what we currently have. We do have a student's bill of rights. We do have records regulation. The 6423 is a new piece of the policy recommended by NYSBA, and that's information and data privacy. This is the process for which, if we had a breach or we had to disclose any information, the process for which we'd need to follow, similar to that of a suit of discrimination or harassment or a hostile work environment. It puts into place the pieces for us to follow process within the regulations of the law. So these are the three policies that we're asking you to do a first read on tonight. If there are any questions tonight or next month, I'll be here that I can answer those questions.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions in regards to the policies?
I just had one question, Hugh. So I'm sure BOCES has cyber insurance for ourselves. And just as respects the third-party vendor, I was just curious, would we require a third-party vendor to also carry cyber insurance if they were doing work for BOCES?
I'm going to default to Warren on this, just because Warren might have a better piece of the business side. I don't see it in the policy per se, but that's not to say it's part of our practice when we do bids and RFPs. I don't know the answer to that at this time.
Okay.
I can find out for you.
Okay, maybe you could, yeah, when Warren comes in to make his
presentation, maybe you can ask.
I could answer that now if you want.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay. We do have cyber insurance through our nicer policy. Okay. And we've expanded the limits on that. I don't believe, but I'll check. I don't believe it's a requirement that vendors have it. And I don't believe we necessarily require it, but we'll go back and review that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Mike, we have another presentation.
Yes, I'd like to
Budget.
load up the two sheets. I'd like to just do a brief presentation on the BOCES administrative and capital budgets. And
Mhm.
okay, so
Oh, what happened? Oh, there it is.
administrative budget, which is on the screen. We have a proposed budget, administrative budget next year for $4,863,993. There's an increase in our proposed administrative budget of $100,684. The post-retirement benefits, those are essentially health insurance that's paid out to our retirees. That cost is not funded through our administrative budget. It's funded through the program budgets and through internal transfers. And then under our revenues, you'll see that there was an increase of $17,000 in our revenue. Looking at the current budget amount of $586,500, increased our projections to $603,500, which reflects a $17,000 increase in revenue. The $17,000 offsets the initial increase in the budget of $100,684. So there's a net increase in our administrative budget of $83,684. That is the amount of money that's going to be distributed among the 18 school districts.
Mhm.
Now, on the next slide, which I'll show that to the board. The capital budget, which is at the bottom of the page, we're proposing an increase of $37,000. Total capital budget is $2,719,000. BOCES does not have bonding authority as a school district does. So we don't go out and issue bonds to the public. So we have a capital charge that's assessed to our component school districts. The increase of $37,000, $30,000 is related to an increase in the rental charge that BOCES pays for our Brennan Middle High School program to the district. That lease is a 10-year lease, and the terms of that lease was starting with the 6th year. The rental would increase by $30,000. So the $37,000 increase, 30 is related to an increase in the rental charge paid to North Babylon School District for the rent of that building. There's also a $5,000 increase in the budget overall, and there's another $2,000 increase that we pay to Republic Airport. Whereas BOCES owns the building in our aviation program, our Wilson Tech aviation program that's housed at the Republic Air Base. We own the building. We have to lease the property that the building is on from Republic Airport. And there was an increase in that lease for next year in the amount of $2,000. In our projects this year, mostly to do, we have some roofs that have to be replaced. And we're concentrating also on air quality projects, changing out some of our controls for HVAC systems and so on and so forth. Tim, next slide, please. So this is a chart of how the administrative charges and the capital charges are distributed among the 18 districts. You can see that the formula that's used to assign the increase in the budget is based on a 3-year average of student enrollment in a particular district. So that if you're in a district that's increasing enrollment, your percent the distributed amount of money would increase. So looking at this chart, you'll notice that I had initially indicated on the preceding page that our administrative budget is increasing by $83,688. And when you look at the bottom of the third column of the chart, that's the amount of the increase in our budget. And that money is distributed among the 18 districts, again, according to student enrollment. There are actually two districts, Harbor Fields and Kings Park, that you'll see have seen reduction because the percent of their students reflects a reduced administrative charge. And you can see that the remaining 16 districts have increases that range from $1,239 up to a high of $9,960. Likewise, with the capital, and by the way, the administrative charges that are assessed to the districts, that's what our component districts vote on, the administrative charge. The capital charge, again, is assessed to the school districts, the component school districts. The budget was increased by an amount of $37,000. And looking on this chart at the fourth, fifth, on the sixth column, you see it's $30,003. There's a difference of $3, and that difference in $3 was a result of rounding numbers to the respective school districts. So in total, the administrative budget is proposed to increase by 2%. Therefore, the assessment would increase by 2%. The capital charge is proposed to increase by 1.4%. And when you combine the total average charge of the administrative charge and the capital charge, it's an increase of 1.76% for our component districts for next year. Are there questions that I might answer for the board?
No, anybody? Guess not, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now. Okay, now we'll acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's report and the claim auditor's report. And okay, do we have any report from Angelique? A district superintendent report?
Hello and good evening, everyone.
Hi.
How are you today? So I want to talk a little bit about assessments. So assessments are the big topic in our school districts. On February 22nd, the U.S. Department of Education issued a memo to all school districts stating that they would not just issue a blanket waiver from states having to administer their state required assessments under the ESSA plan, under ESSA. They said that they would waive accountability and that there is a waiver to do so, but they still expected school districts across the country to still administer their state required exams. Well, we understand that over 40% of the children in the state of New York are not even in school buildings at this point in time. So everyone is trying to figure out how we're going to move about with this. The state, as of today, has actually stated that they are looking to gather some data to help with their argument to provide to the U.S. Department of Education to let them know that we understand that the U.S. Department of Education wants to be able to track student learning. They want to know where our students are at. But the point is, across the state, we are already doing that within our classrooms each and every day. Teachers are constantly using a form of formative assessment or summative assessments in order to track their students' learning. So as of this afternoon, the State Education Department released a survey for every school district, charter school and private school, to be able to log in and share the types of assessments that they have constantly been using through all of this time. So that way we can then provide that data as part of the request for this waiver. At this point in time, it looks as if we are still required to administer not just the 3 through 8 assessments, but 4 Regents exams. But the department is still standing strong and saying, wait a second, we're not really sure that this is good for children, and we would like for you to reconsider the idea of us providing assessments for our students. So in a nutshell, I would just say there was more information to come at the next Board of Regents meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, March 15th. And hopefully by our next board meeting, I will have some updates for you, because it just creates so many complications to try to schedule assessments, particularly when you have children that are still not in school. So we're holding tight and trying to do what's right and what's best for our children. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Angelique. Is any board members have any questions for Angelique?
I was just curious, Angelique, if they did give the Regents, I'm assuming students would have to come in person to take the Regents. So how does that affect if a kid is afraid, or their parents are afraid of COVID and says, well, I don't want my child to go in person to take the test?
Of course. So Regents exams cannot be administered electronically, right? That is an in-person type of assessment. So what the department will probably move on at the Monday, March 15th Board of Regents meeting, I believe that they will look to provide some guidance to districts on how to measure that. The message that we have been communicating is that if children are in school and they would like to take it, then that's one thing, but we're waiting to see what the Board of Regents is going to do. They've already issued additional guidance that says that they are going to vote to hopefully waive all of the Regents exams except for the 4 that are required under ESSA. And the 4 that are required to be administered are Algebra 1, Living Environment, Geometry, and Earth Science. Those are, I'm sorry, let me repeat that. Yes, those are the 4 that would be required to be administered. So they're trying to see how they can finagle and how to work and do what's best for our children.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, I have a question too.
Go ahead.
I understand the difficulty in giving assessments, but certainly there needs to be some reckoning on what the impact on education has been from the pandemic. So what do you recommend doing that assessment? And sooner or later, there has to be a reckoning as to the educational debt that we owe students now, because there certainly has been a loss in this process. And what attempts are being made to measure that loss?
So it's funny you should ask that question. Just as recently as last week, we talked a little bit about what is learning loss and how do we quantify that, so that way we know how to help students move forward. And we were challenged to say, maybe not look at it as a learning loss as a negative, but understand that there are additional skills that children have picked up given the pandemic. So what the state education department is looking to do is to figure out where students are. How are we going to measure that? And again, we're all administering assessments, whether it's from NWEA, whether it's iReady, whether it's a district created assessment. So locally, we know where those students are. I know the department and some of the BOCES networks are looking to develop resources to find out how we can best support students if we're able to, quote unquote, return back to a normal world in September and we're able to have students in. So we're already in the talks of how we do that and how we do what's best for children. So more information to come.
Thanks. I'd be interested to see what the outcome of those assessments is. What we see as the impact of that.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll tell us. Okay, thank you very much. Next, Mr. Flynn, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Santos. I just wanted to acknowledge one of the donations the board's going to act on tonight to receive is from Estee Lauder, a local company.
Oh, Estee Lauder, yeah.
And I mention them because they've been such a wonderful and generous partner for our senior high school program in supporting projects in that program. Several years ago, they had donated $3,000 to the senior high school, to the Student Activity Fund. And in this board meeting, the board will be asked to approve the acceptance of 40 of these aesthetic lamps. And these are the lamps that you see typically at a cosmetic counter in a department store. They're high-end lamps. We're going to use them in our cosmetology and appearance program for CTE. And anytime they can help our programs, we have a long history with them going back 20 years. They've been a wonderful partner and support of our programs. I just wanted to give them acknowledgement tonight. Their executive vice president, Gary Nestor, who does great work. And thank you, Estee Lauder. And then secondly, we have another grant. We just received a $500,000 grant from the State Education Department. The grant is to enable Western Suffolk BOCES to provide professional development to our component school districts on the new science standards. So that's another grant that's going to be administered under Angelique's division. And again, it's an example of the many grants that we have, which are to serve our component school districts. And this is yet another example of that. And then I just wanted to share with the board, Western Suffolk BOCES hosted our legislative program virtually last week on February 26th. We had invited a number of our state representatives, our state senators, and assembly members to join in the presentation. Senator Boyle was there, Senator Phil Boyle, Senator John Brooks, Senator Jim Gorin, Senator Mario Matera, Assemblyman Mike Durso, Assemblywoman Kim Jean-Pierre, and Assemblyman Steve Stern all joined us for the virtual meeting. And there were 3 superintendents that assisted in the presentation of the issues. And that included Dr. Tim Egan from Kings Park, and Dr. Gina Talbot from the Wyandanch School District, and Mr. James Belansky from the Huntington School District. And the news from Washington, D.C. seems to be very positive in the sense that as it relates to state aid, there's, as everyone has been following the news, there's a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. New York State is supposed to receive $12 billion in state aid, and that's going to offset any type of reduction of state aid this year going forward. So that's going to make districts whole for next year. The concern is that the state, New York State, is using federal funds to plug its state aid deficit. And the concern that districts have is what happens next year if the federal aid dries up, it's no longer available, and there's going to be a huge fiscal cliff that districts are going to have to deal with. The other initiative that's gaining traction in Albany is funding the foundation aid formula. Back in 2007, the State Education Department developed the foundation aid formula. In essence, what it does is it drives state aid to school districts based on need. And they look at how impoverished the district is. They look at the free lunch rates. They look at the number of students who are English language learners. They look at the number of children who have disabilities. They look at the poverty level and the wealth level of a school district. And that's measured in what they call the combined wealth ratio. It's a combination of taking a school district's wealth based on property values as well as looking at the income values in that community. And the state calculates that information to come up with what they call a combined wealth ratio. So there's a lot of movement in Albany in recent weeks about funding the foundation aid formula at a much higher percent. Senator Mayer yesterday in a conference call indicated that she's looking to fund it up to 70%, which is the highest rate it's ever been funded. And that will drive more state aid to the wealthier districts. Again, that's good news. But again, if that money dries up because it's mostly federal funds that's being used, it's going to have a more significant impact on high need, low wealth school districts, because those districts, they derive anywhere from 50 to 70% of their revenue comes from state aid. So if there's a loss of state aid, who is it going to more impact? It's going to be the high need, low wealth school districts going forward. So while there's a great celebration about the temporary relief of the federal aid that's coming the way of New York, the concern is already looking to next year. Is that aid going to be there? And if not, will New York State be able to recover and replicate that aid so that there's not a huge drop off in state aid to districts next year, which will disproportionately impact poorer school districts. There was another proposal in the governor's executive budget. This is the second year he proposed doing this. He wants to take 9 service-based aids that currently are separate now. He wants to combine them into one service-based aid, and one of those aids is BOCES aid. And there are other smaller entities in that packet, and what the governor is proposing to do is package all those different, there's 11 different aid categories onto one grant. He's also in his executive budget, there's a $700 million shortfall in state aid next year. So in effect, it's not only combining those different seven aid categories, not just BOCES aid, it's transportation aid, textbook aid, but the big financial impact is the BOCES program. They have the largest share, and his executive budget is showing when you take all of the aid that's being paid to those 11 different categories during the current year, there's a shortfall of $700 million next year. That was a main topic. That was a topic, obviously, that I presented to our state assemblies and state senator representatives. It just so happened that 2 of our new state senators, Senator Matera and Assemblyman Durso, are graduates of the BOCES CTE programs, which I didn't know, and spoke in large measure of support for the BOCES programs and the importance. So that's another concern. But again, our state reps are working hard to advocate on behalf of the region going forward, and we're really happy that we're going to have that infusion of federal aid. Otherwise, it was going to have a significant negative impact on school budgets going forward to next year. Any questions that I could answer for the board?
Anybody? No. No, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a Chief Financial Officer, Warren.
Okay, good evening. Just to quickly run through where we are on the capital and alterations programs. We have the monthly report, and as you can see, we've submitted quite a few projects to state ed in the last 2 months. We now have 16 projects for an excess of $6.25 million that are up there waiting for approval. We have currently 2 projects for about $80,000 that are in the current bid process. We have a number of projects, about 9, where the work has been now completed within the last month. We have 3 projects where the work is currently in progress. And the big item is the bid we're awarding tonight to complete the roofing replacement at the Wheatley Heights building. That project was budgeted for $1,150,000. It came in at about $900,000. So we're pleased that we have about a $250,000, $247,000 surplus in that project. It's not just bad budgeting. What really happened there was that the amount of asbestos abatement that was required for that job was much less than we had anticipated it might be. Sometimes you don't know how much asbestos removal work has to be done until you actually start the job. So we're pleased with that, and that's funding that can go towards other priority projects as we move into next year. Glad to take any questions or anything.
Anybody has any questions for Warren? Okay, thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking care of our money. Okay, now we're going to have items for board action. Thank you, Warren. And now I want to work on a consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept agenda item 9.1 from 1 to 4? May I have a motion? Hello?
So moved. So moved.
Moved. Second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Eileen?
Aye.
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 Okay, aye. Marianne?
She said aye.
Okay, I can't really hear her. All right, motion carries 5-0. And now may I have a motion for personnel 9.2 from 9.21 to 9.25?
So
May I have a
moved.
motion? Moved, second, and second. Any questions? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, Eileen, I heard you, but I didn't hear Marianne.
Mrs. Pano voted aye.
Aye, okay, so that's, motion carries 5-0. Okay, we have a few more. Agenda item 9.3 from 9.31 to 9.35. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved in second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Motion carries. We have some old business. Okay, we have agenda item 10.1. Approval of Western Suffolk BOCES Board of Education meeting dates for 2021 to 2022. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any questions? No. Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. New business. We have a new business, we have 11.1 to 11.4, which are the policies, the first read for the policies. Does anybody, may I have a motion for the first read?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions on these policies? No. Motion carries as the first read. I presume that the next meeting we'll approve it with the second reading. Okay, this is a motion to adjourn, but Prior to that, I would like to, before we adjourn, I would like to remind everyone in regards to if you're registered, the legislator refit breakfast. Okay, which is Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. So if you have signed up for that, if not, contact Joanne tomorrow if you'd like to attend. It's, I think it's a Zoom meeting. Okay, and secondly, before we leave, there was one person that I didn't thank personally, and I think we should very much thank Tim, our technology expert. If it wasn't for him, he did a great job today by the way he kept us going with our executive in our open meeting. And he's such a geek. He's wonderful. It really is, especially for me, because I don't know anything about technology. But I want to thank him. And that's about it. Now I will entertain a motion to adjourn the section. It's
So moved.
8:05, 8:06. And Jim have moved. Anybody second?
Second.
Brian.
Moved in second. Anybody else have anything to say before we completely adjourn? No? If not, I will see you perhaps on Friday at the refit legislative breakfast. If
Okay.
not, next month. Thank you so much. Thank
Have a
you,
good night.
everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Thank you very, very much for
Night,
everything.
Marianne.
Okay. Good night, Marianne.
Good evening.
I'm looking forward
Good
to
night.
seeing you soon. Okay. Actually, Tim has to go to her house.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.